Your Worship, the sort of moving along a bit to the communication and engagement. So Q&A from previous information sessions, and welcome Katie.
Kia ora koutou. Here to provide you with a little bit more detail around proposed changes to level of service 4.1.9. Do we move on?
Yep.
So up there we have the current description. There's two proposed changes to this level of service. The first is in its description. Up there you see the current description of the level of service. It's internally focused around advice and support. At the bottom in brackets you can see what we're actually measuring, participation and contribution to decision making, but it's entirely couched in terms of internal advice. And rather than sort of focused on citizen experience. Worth noting at this point that this is measured by how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the opportunities to have your say, and how satisfied or dissatisfied are you that the council's decision-making processes are easy to use and engage with. So we propose that it would be better and more consistent with other levels of service to rewrite this focused on citizen experience, as you see up there, opportunities for residents to give feedback and engage with council decision-making processes. So our rationale for this one, obviously, is to reference that citizen experience rather than internal advice. It makes it more consistent with other levels of service that we have across the organisation that are customer-focused. And obviously it reflects the fact that citizen experience is made up of multiple engagement points. Communications and engagement, advice and support is one of those points, but obviously the full picture is up there on the screen. And we want to be able to capture that. So what we currently measure, satisfaction and understanding. You can see there level of service 4.1.9 is measured on satisfaction or dissatisfaction of opportunities to have your say, and decision-making processes are easy to use and engage with. We also have another level of service, 4.1.18, for a comparison for you. Now that's focused on understanding of decision-making, and that's an agree, disagree, and a satisfied or dissatisfied. A useful comparison at this point is Wellington. They are the only ones, council, which has a strong correlation in talking about satisfaction with decision making. We've checked out other councils and they do variations of that, but Wellington comes the closest. However, you'll note with interest there that they talk about opportunity. I believe I have the opportunity to participate, adequate opportunities to have my say, understand how council makes decisions, and decisions made in the best interests of the city. So in terms of what we're doing, thank you, things we're doing a little bit differently. So what we have seen is a significant increase in early engagement on plans before formal consultation. So in 2021 we did this with 3 projects. This really kicked off after 2022 with the Marshans-Briggs intersection following advice from Council. And now it's just a sort of like more of a matter of course. And by early engagement, what that means is talking early with affected residents and key stakeholders to put their feedback into the plan before it goes out for formal consultation. We've also made significant improvements in our consultation information and material available to residents. Right from the beginning, we're introducing you as decision makers so that submitters can see who will be making the decisions. We're linking to the decision-making video and communications back to submitters so they can actually see the discussion leading up to the decision being made and the actual decision being made. We have a better understanding of demographics, not full, but better. We're now asking the questions as part of our consultations, and that enables us to hear not only who we are hearing from, or find out who we're hearing from, but also who we aren't hearing from, and enabling us to target that a little bit more. We have more use of translation in our consultations and engagement. We have a far superior online experience, but that is not at the expense of hard copy, and we are making more use of library displays for engagements and targeted flyer drops, and you can see a wet picture there of one of the library displays. Thank you. Just as an example of some of that online engagement platform, on Waltham Playground there you have a new interactive map. It's positioned with an aerial photograph, so it's easy to see where it is. You drop a pin, you can go in and investigate each of those features in the playground. Compare Lancaster Park, which was on our old site. It's an old static map, up to you to how to interpret that. So, early signs, we're making some progress. So volume of submissions and consultation, just for your information there, you can see 2021 we did 49, 2022 similar number. Obviously we had Te Kaha as part of that, and that certainly beefed up the submission numbers somewhat. 2023 we had 88. What you can see though is a steady increase there in submissions received. Average there per consultation now sits at 282. Now, we're also doing a submitter survey at the end of consultations when we invite the submitters to provide feedback, focused specifically on, sorry, it's too far away for me to be able to read. Focus on the satisfaction with overall submission process, information provided, and was it easy to find project information. Now, admittedly, this is in low numbers. It started back in 2022, but you can see we are travelling in the right direction. As part of that survey, we also ask, did they feel like their feedback was taken into account by decision makers there? You can see that there's a fair number that strongly agree, though there is a strong correlation there between whether or not they think their feedback's been taken into account and what the outcome of the decision was. So then, in terms of the proposed change to target, currently the target is described as previous year's resident survey results +1. This is how it was in our previous activity management plan and how it currently sits in our draft activity management plan for this LTP. So the 2023 resident survey result was 29%. That means that the target for 2024 was 30%. We didn't achieve that. 2025 target will therefore be 29%. 2026 target is currently up in the air based on the resident survey results. It could go up, but it could also go down. So our recommendation for change here is to set a target of at least 28%. And our rationale for doing that is it sets a baseline. 28% is the average result from the last 5 years, and it shows our ongoing commitment to improvement, achieving at least 28% rather than fluctuating based on previous year's results +1.
Good. Victoria.
Thank you. I think this arose out of my question when it came to the table a week or so ago. It still doesn't make sense because in the early part of the presentation you've said the early signs are that we are making progress, and yet it's on one hand, and on the other you're dropping your level of service. So either you've got confidence in how we are tracking or you don't. I'm struggling to reconcile how we can be doing that and dropping the level of service when you've just told us that actually we're getting better at this.
We're not proposing to drop the level of service. At the moment we have a floating level of service. So it is entirely based on previous year's resident survey results +1. So for example, in a year that we might really do poorly and achieve 25% or 26%, our target then becomes 27%. What we're simply saying is we would like it to stabilise at least 28%, and then with the commitment that we've got there, showing that we are doing what we can to achieve a good outcome, we're hopeful to achieve better than that.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't think it would be realistic for us, based on the fact that we are to go much higher than 28%, based on the fact that we haven't been able to achieve that for the last 5 years, despite what we're trending. Because it is a resident survey result, and what we're seeing with our small submitter survey result is a much smaller sample size.
I think that's why you're communications professionals, because it's almost as if we're just changing the narrative a little bit. I still see it as dropping it, and yeah, I've got trouble. I've got issues with it. I'm sorry. I think we should be continuing to strive to be better all of the time, and the way to do that is to continue with the +1.
No, I think it's just re-levelling and setting a bottom line rather than going
Up
so.
and up
So
and
our
up.
minimum now is
28%.
28%.
At the moment, I don't have a minimum. We don't have a minimum for this level of service. What we're putting there is that we will have a minimum of 28%.
But we should still be aiming higher all the time and having the level of service.
Thanks so much. I really like the Wellington wording, the opportunity to have your say. So when you're looking at these percentages here, is that percentages based on a potential new wording?
We are
So it'd be hard, like we'll go through a couple of
that.
years where it's, so
Because
I'd be in
that is,
favour.
quite difficult to, they do achieve a higher result, but you could speculate that is because it's about opportunity. And most other councils do talk in terms of opportunity to have your say and numbers of consultations as opposed to satisfaction and dissatisfaction. So there's obviously something aspirational about making sure that you want people to be satisfied with the experience, but most other councils will track this as opportunity rather than satisfaction.
Because I think that there's value in some ways measuring both. So people recognise that they have the opportunity, and I would think that the baseline for that is probably likely higher than a current satisfaction, if you like, with the result.
I would hope.
Yeah. And so there's probably value in doing, that work in Wellington wording, because they've got opportunity, and then kind of a satisfaction-y type wording.
So that's something that we could look to talk further with Kathy Emerson in the reporting and monitoring.
Yeah. So I'd be in favour of making that change.
Right, we've got a few here. Aaron, please.
Yeah, so mine's a little on the how we're engaging and getting the results, because we talked during the lead into the LTP around using Christchurch media, which is a video form, and video is the growth industry. All the other media are going down in numbers, video keeps going up. And so it seems to be the way to engage, because you can get so much more information in, and we're still not doing it, and we're still getting the same survey results. And I agree with Vic, we should still be doing the get better every year. It should always be the goal in everything we do, 28, 29, 30, whatever. None of them are a high start mark, so it's not too hard to get better. I don't think it's putting too much pressure on a 1% gain. But so how do we go about changing how we engage, because we should be using more video?
So that's certainly something that our new platform makes a lot easier for us, and that's something that we are...
Which platform is that?
That's a new online engagement platform.
Okay, so the problem with that is that it is only people who are already engaging with council are doing it, like even with the 0.01% of the population who come in and did a verbal submission, a good percentage of them don't know how council work and what we do, and they're our most engaged people. So therefore the other 99.9% of people aren't, and something like one of our staff professionals explaining why a pump's being changed on a road, or explaining the sewage fund, or the mayor fronting something, has a way bigger impact than a full page ad in any print media or a sign on the road. It just works. And you can have little graphics, donut graphs, the whole lot.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Yeah, it's probably to the second point around the resident satisfaction number, and I'd be interested in, I don't know whether it's, Katie, you might be able to kick off, and Peter, if you've got anything to add. Where I'm trying to get to is, I agree with the sentiment that we should be ambitious with the target, so I wouldn't be that keen to have a fixed number. I'd like to see it increasing. But I just wondered, at the level of increase each year, or that plus 1%, if it was plus 2%, what kind of behaviour or what kind of information would be presented that helps guide lifting that resident satisfaction for us? Because I mean, I qualify that if it helps by saying, when we set levels of service, it's effectively to drive a certain investment type of decision or a service we provide within the council. This is kind of no different, in that if this is really our priority, if we were lifting that substantially, what would that look like? So do you want to touch on that?
Do you want to go first?
Well, I guess it's useful to consider it in the full picture. So all of these factors will come into driving a change. It would also look what we ask is also going to factor into it. I'm afraid I'm not. Yeah.
I might be able to chip in here. Normally these questions are about something very specific. Water leaks, noise complaint. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Engagement is a very broad concept. It falls across all services. Putting the number aside, whether it's 28 or 29, understanding what's under the bonnet, like what's driving that. Is it lack of information? Is it lack of opportunity? Is I didn't get the answer I wanted? Is it something management did? Is it something governance did? To lift that target, we probably need to understand more. We need to understand more. What are the actual drivers underneath it? Rather than lift the number and hope.
Yeah,
So-
but isn't, maybe I've got it wrong, and I did duck out for 5 minutes, so I may have. That 28% though, isn't that our overall resident satisfaction?
No.
Is that just purely for engagement?
That's just
for
engagement.
Oh, right. Well, that definitely should be ambitious then. That shouldn't be a baseline. I mean, if we can't lift engagement, then there's something That's not. That seems bizarre.
So
to
to
me.
put it in context, we haven't done particularly well in that score, but nor has any council across New Zealand.
Yeah.
But that's not a reason for us not to be aspirational. We are trying very many things, but I guess it's how aspirational you would want to be,
Yeah.
and whether or not that's going to be realistic when you're asking people if they are satisfied or dissatisfied, as opposed to whether or not they've had an opportunity to have their say. Satisfied and dissatisfied is quite subjective, and as we do see with some of those results, it does to a certain extent depend on if you received the outcome that you wanted in the decision, whether or not you were satisfied with the process, and that does tarnish the people's views on engagement. And
So, yeah, okay, that clarifies it. But so just to be clear, because it's sort of a similar process to the overall satisfaction, but thinking about just communications, if we put that in with a higher increase, if it was 1 or 2%, do you think that would lead to challenging the way you do things now? Because if we're saying that we're kind of comparable with other councils, but actually no one's doing it, no one's exceeding it, then there must be different ways we can consult or engage that actually lift that. Because we hear it time and time again.
Lynn has got something to contribute.
So if I could just make a couple of comments. I think what I'd like to say is that there has been a significant amount of challenge as to how we do things. If you consider the What Matters Most campaign, which I think was widely regarded as one of the more successful engagement processes we have run in the last couple of years, and has been recognised as such by other councils and staff, and yet, notwithstanding that effort, which was significant around this table, as well in communications, it doesn't necessarily translate into people feeling more satisfied. Likewise, when you look at the numbers of submissions, we have more than doubled the number of submissions per category of engagement. So I think we have yet to really understand the input and how it relates to the output. There are many other factors which have a bearing on people's perception of satisfaction. So if we look at engagement in relation to, say, transport projects, if people don't get the result they want, they are unlikely to feel satisfied, notwithstanding however much we engage. So I think one of the challenges for us all is to, what does success actually look like? It's not possible to get 100%. So what is an adequate level of stretch that reflects the realities of the situation that we're all operating in? And Katie's advice is minimum 28% with a stretch to go beyond that.
Okay. Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Just on the things we're doing differently, the increase in early engagement in 2022, you talk about the 6 projects which became processed after the Marston-Spriggs intersection. Could you explain that a little bit?
That was around affected residents. Look, I'm really sorry. I would like to have Tessa Zant with me at the table. Unfortunately, she had a clash and isn't able to join it, I think. But that was around affected residents and sort of like really honing in on who we need to hear from as part of a consultation, an early engagement and consultation.
Yeah, just because my recollection of that is there were 7 responses from people who lived close to the intersection, and despite the fact that there are some outrageous number of vehicles that use that intersection in a day, I thought it was something like 15,000 or 20,000 or something like that, but we don't really hear from those people, and I don't know how we actually contact them, and what relevance the local residents have to the intersection versus those who go through it every day. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Andre?
If we send a thank you very much to the Arts Centre for helping boost engagement in our long-term plan this year.
Is that
Well, no, because then people have gone through the 10-page form and then been able to share their views on other issues as well. So just a thought.
Tyler?
Well, no, people have physically had to go through the form. Yes, they have, because we've got the numbers and breakdowns, and people have done. We physically do. It's in there. So a lot of those submissions have answered all questions on the long-term plan.
A number.
Well, clearly you haven't read the submissions because they do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're talking about two different things. A certain amount of them are from that, others are from just going to the website manually and
Can
go
we
through the
focus
questions
on
one
the
by
day?
one.
Any
They're
who,
two different things.
Tyler's bigger than you. Here's his turn.
Get the gloves out.
I decked him on the league field once, I did it again.
I know, the Kumara never talks about his weakness. But I just wanted to ask, Peter, you did talk about looking under the hood. And in regard, and SLT, please jump in on this if you need. In regard to the comms resourcing for comms, how does that look in comparison to the current readings? Have we been giving more budget and OPEX to comms to be able to deliver more for us?
No, we maintain our budgets. However, we do operate, we're always looking for more efficient ways of working and doing things differently. And I think the thinking about how we're working with our online platform, for example, goes to show you it's a very, very different environment from it was 3 years ago to what it is now. We're trying new things, we're doing things differently.
Mm-hmm.
More resource is not necessarily going to change that. More funding is not necessarily going to change that. Different ways of working, different approaches, different potentially working more closely with community groups, all that kind of carry on,
Yep.
the stuff that we're still exploring. So rather than saying, is there more money to throw at this, it's more
Oh,
about
no,
how
I was
can
just
we
asking if
work more different. Oh, how can we work differently to achieve what we need to achieve?
Yeah, cool. I'm not proposing anything, by the way, guys. Don't be worried. The next question in regards to that was around policy, internal policy, particularly around the use of platforms like TikTok, X, Facebook, things like that. Is there much flexibility within the policy to be able to deliver those things easier, or is there a process that you need to follow through in order to get that sign-off?
We use TikTok. We have a great social media there. I mean, it's still a bit of a niche sport to follow council. I have to be honest with you. That's not everyone's kind of aspiration when it comes to social media. But we try, and some of the stuff goes out there, and it gets the reach that we need to get.
Yep.
And we use other channels across the board. We make the most of all of the communication channels that we have available to us, but we are probably tapping out on what we can do for free or sort of like cheaply. We're now also sort of like rolling into that a little bit of paid advertising because that's what it takes.
Cool. I'm trying to hone in here just a little bit, just get a bit more of a understanding of the speed bumps that you might come across in terms of engagement. The next question, the last one, really is on that citizens face-to-face area for staff and direct correlation or working with elected members. Are there any hindrances with staff being able to run meetings, public meetings or citizens' assemblies if one did come up in the next annual plan?
No, there are no limitations. We absolutely can do that kind of carry on. We are particularly successful if they're events that you have organised as well. So we saw with the long-term plan for the consultation in libraries or when you ran events in your communities, they were very well attended. Staff were able to attend and provide information at that point. That was a great way of reaching people. There's certainly nothing within the Act or within any limitations that I have within this organisation that can stop us using any range of engagement tactics.
Okay. In light of that, I'm okay with the 28 at the moment, and I'm keen to see how you can step it up in collaboration with us and with the community. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you. Now, just in the essence of time, we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to talk. What Lynn has said, the 28% in aim higher. We generally will have, we could talk around this for another hour and get absolutely nowhere fast. So I'm suggesting we just
I'm
say
happy.
yes.
I'm happy with starting at that for the kind of final piece, but I'd like us to divvy it up into kind of like Wellington, where it's an organisational thing first, which is, do you have the opportunity? Are our team out there? Are they engaging? Do you have the opportunity to, if you wanted to? Different to the satisfaction with the process as a whole, including the decision making, because I think it's unfair on the organisation if they get tarnished with, for example, elected members going on social media saying, what's the point in having your say? Because colleagues don't listen, as opposed to the organisation. So I think that, was it possible to have those separated and ready for the final sign-off?
Final sign-off, yes, just turning momentarily.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, guys. This isn't, thanks Tim, I got you. This isn't a long-term plan decision.
No, it's a resident survey thing.
Yeah. Does every city in the country do a resident survey? Because I heard that some don't.
No, they don't.
So we're just making bullets to fight for people to fire at us.
A lot do, they just ask different questions, and look, this is not my area of expertise.
No, I'm just throwing it out there. Okay. Right, yeah, hang on, I've got a few ahead of you, mate. Well, I'd like to wrap it up, but we'll carry on. Vic?
Can I just get some clarity, please, to the question that Councillor Harrison Hunt asked? Bringing this back to the long-term plan, we're not seeing any increase in OPEX and resourcing for the comms team going forward?
Just the normal adjustment that you would expect, yes. Not any separate increase.
Okay, good. Now, keeping them short. Yanni? Please.
Yeah, so I mean, my feedback is we should be aiming for at least 50%, more than 50%. To have like 1 in 4 people satisfied, we should be aiming at least more than half of the people to be satisfied with what we do. There are a number of other transparency things on our website in terms of our resident survey. So openness, transparency is 21%.
So sorry, Yanni, you've said 50% and that's your...
So I think we should be aiming to set greater targets and not just reduce the targets. And I don't like the idea of a floating target as well. I think it would be much better to aim towards something and try and achieve it, recognising that, as others have said, it's not just on staff, it's also on us.
Okay, fair enough.
At a governance level.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if we do like surveys of people, like how we're doing the surveys on what projects of submitters. Obviously, we've heard from the Wine Street people who felt pretty upset about not being involved in a decision that was being made and have then subsequently been shut out of most of the processes to even have their say. We've got other people around slow speeds, for example, in my area, where people had no idea what was coming. And I know we've done a lot online, but if you look at the public sentiment around the changes...
No, we've really got to get
How
going.
are we capturing that?
Okay.
I'm afraid I can't answer that on the spot.
Okay, fair enough. Right, we've got 2 left, and that's it. Jake?
Mine will be quick. We're going to set a new level of service to have your happiness be satisfied 10% of the time, Yanni. But what about that 28%? How do you feel about the idea of 28 being, I guess, a minimum standard, and then having a floating 1% on top? I know Lynn suggested it, but it's not what the paper says. Is that unfair, or...?
It just, look...
It's a stretch, and we call it stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that isn't even possible in our reporting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, did you have your...
Yeah, Katie, I want to thank you and your team. You've had a bruising, and I think it's absolutely unfair to you and your team. I want to thank you for what you do. It's really, really hard. And if you give it a comparison to a general election, only 50% at best are going to be happy. Actually, only 20%. To reach for 50%, when we're lucky to get 28%, that's called democracy. If people have an opportunity, every single person has an opportunity to take part. They choose not to. You know, it's part of our role too, to encourage our residents, half of who actually don't like us because they'd never voted for us, and probably if you look at it, could have been 70% didn't. But yeah, so, you know, I just want to remind us, you know, we're all geniuses, but it's actually a lot harder than you think, and I want to thank the staff for it.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Okay, escape now while you can.
Thank you. I will. Thank you very much.
Good on you. Thanks, Katie. Right. So...
3 waters.
Yeah, we're doing 3 waters next, not GPS, because 3 waters...
He's got to get away.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we're going to